Commander Eli Thorne had never liked silence. It's not the kind that came in space, anyway. It was too heavy, like something was waiting just beyond the stars, watching and listening. He sat alone in his quarters aboard the Unity's Flame, a diplomatic ship floating between human space and the borders of the Trell Dominion. Around him, soft lights glowed in the quiet room, the only sound being the gentle hum of life support systems. He had spent the entire day in meetings long, exhausting, talks with alien diplomats who smiled too much and said too little. His uniform jacket was off, thrown over the back of a chair, and he was halfway through a lukewarm cup of coffee when the door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. Eli didn't turn right away. He thought it might be a junior officer or a crew member who had made a mistake. "You're in the wrong room," he said casually, not looking up. But the voice that answered made him freeze. "I know." It was soft, smooth, and powerful. Feminine, but not human. He turned slowly. Standing in the doorway was Queen Zelaria, of the Trell Dominion, ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the known galaxy. She was tall, her skin a deep shade, a silver blue that shimmered under the lights. Her dark eyes seemed to glow faintly, and the elegant armor she wore was marked with royal sigils. But what truly held Eli's breath was the expression on her face. She wasn't angry. She wasn't confused. She was calm, certain, and smiling. Then she stepped forward and pressed something on the panel behind her. The door slid shut and locked. With a click, Eli stood up quickly, his body tense. "What are you doing?" he asked. "This is a diplomatic ship." "You can't just walk into someone's room and I need your help," she interrupted, her voice still quiet but sharp, like a blade. "With what?" he asked, narrowing his eyes. "And why me?" Queen Zelaria didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into the folds of her cloak and pulled out a small crystal no larger than a human thumb. It glowed faintly with pulsing green light. "This," she said, walking toward him, "contains the truth about my people, about my empire, and about something much older, something that connects to your kind more than you know." Eli stared at the crystal, but didn't take it. He wasn't ready to trust her, not yet. "You came to me instead of your own council." "Why?" "Because I can't trust them," she said, her voice suddenly trembling not with fear, but with something deeper, pain. "I can't trust anyone in my court. They watch me. They lie to me. And some want me dead." Eli's jaw tightened. "So you thought locking yourself in a human officer's room was the best option?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, because humans," she said, stepping closer, "have one thing the rest of the galaxy fears more than war: unpredictability. You don't follow our rules. And that makes you dangerous shit honest. You still value something my empire has forgotten: truth." For a long moment, the room was silent again. Eli didn't know what to say. His instincts screamed at him to call security, to report this. But something in her eyes, those sharp, intelligent, exhausted eyes, held him still. She wasn't lying. She was desperate. He finally reached out and took the crystal from her hand. It was warm. "You do realize this might start a war," he said. "I know," Zelaria whispered. "But if I do nothing, my people will destroy themselves from within. The fire will spread across the stars." Eli sat back down slowly, holding the crystal, feeling the weight of the moment settle in his chest. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a turning point. And somehow, he had just become a part of something much bigger than diplomacy. Queen Zelaria's unexpected visit left a heavy silence in the small room, a silence filled with questions and hidden fears. After handing over the glowing crystal, she took a careful step back, her eyes never leaving Commander Eli Thorne's. The light from the device pulsed gently, casting soft shadows on the walls as it revealed secrets of an ancient past. Eli's fingers gripped the crystal as if it were a burning coal. "What is this?" I asked, voice low. His heart beat faster, not just from the sudden danger, but from the weight of the unknown. He knew that in the vast galaxy, secrets like these could change the fate of many worlds. "This crystal holds the sacred records of the Trell Dominion," Zelaria explained, her tones steady yet tinged with sorrow. "It has the history of my people, the betrayals, the lost promises, and a truth that has been hidden for generations. I carry it because I must show the truth, even if it may burn the old ways away." She paused, her expression softening as memories of a betrayed past flashed across her face. "My empire is built on lies. The council hides truths that could save us from destruction. But I have learned that honesty, no matter how dangerous, is the only path to healing." Her eyes shone with a mix of hope and despair, and in that moment Eli saw a kind of vulnerability in a queen he never thought he would witness. Eli listened carefully, absorbing every word. His life had been devoted to order and protocol, but here before him was a queen risking everything for the sake of truth. "Why come to me?" he asked again, his voice quiet. "Why should a human be trusted with your secret?" Hilarious. Response was heartfelt. "Because humans have always been unpredictable. You do not follow the same rigid path as others. You question, you challenge, and you have a capacity for change that many in my court have long forgotten. In you, I see the spark of truth and freedom that my people once admired in legends of old. I believe you are the one who can help me reveal what must be known." The room seemed to grow smaller as the weight of her confession filled every corner. Outside, the constant hum of the ship and the distant twinkle of stars could not distract. From the gravity of this meeting, Eli realized that this was not just a call for help. It was an invitation into a complex web of ancient politics and personal sacrifice. Gently, he placed the crystal on the table between them, its light dancing. Over both their faces, "What must I do?" he asked. It was not a question of duty now. It was a question of the heart. A deep longing to understand the hidden scars of an empire. Zalaria's voice lowered as she continued. "I need you to help me bring these records to the Council of the Dominion. Free us from tyranny and mend the broken promises of the past. But there are many who would see these secrets buried forever. I must trust someone who does not fear the chaos of truth." Eli felt the immense responsibility settle on his shoulders. His mind raced with thoughts of the possible repercussions: political upheaval, ancient grudges, and the threat of war. Yet beneath those dark thoughts, a warm determination began to grow. In this moment, he recognized that he was not merely a commander following orders. He was a man who could stand for justice and hope. Even when the path was steeped in danger, the silence stretched out again as both weighed their choices. Finally, with a firm nod, Eli reached out and placed his hand atop hers. "I will help you," he declared in a steady tone. "I may be human, but I can learn, adapt, and fight for what is right. Together, we will take this secret and let the truth shine, no matter the cost." And so, in that quiet room aboard the ship, amid the soft glow of a mysterious crystal, a fragile alliance was born. Two souls from very different worlds stepped forward into a future that promised both peril and possibility, a future where truth would be the guiding light, and where the courage to change everything might begin, with a single human heart. The quiet tension inside Eli's room did not last long. Less than an hour after Queen Zalaria revealed her secret, warning lights began to blink on the walls. The soft hum of the ship shifted, replaced by a low, distant alarm. The atmosphere changed in an instant. Something was wrong. Eli stood quickly, instinct sharpening. "Stay here," he said to Zalaria, who had already risen to her feet, her expression hardening. Her royal calm had vanished, replaced by the fierce alertness of someone who had lived through too many betrayals. Suddenly the ship's comm system crackled. "Security alert on Deck 3. Unauthorized presence detected near the diplomat quarters. All personnel remain in place." Zalaria's eyes met his. "They found me." Eli didn't ask who they were. The answer was clear enough. Whoever wanted the Queen silenced had moved faster than expected. "We need to move," he said, unlocking the door. But just as it hissed open, a flash of movement came from the corridor. Figure in black armor, face hidden behind a featureless helmet, stepped forward with a silent weapon raised. Eli didn't hesitate. He grabbed Zalaria's arm and pulled her back just as the first shot sizzled past them, striking the wall with a crackling burst of energy. The corridor turned into chaos. More attackers moved in, silent, deadly, and coordinated. These were not pirates or common. Criminals, they were assassins. Trained, precise, sent for one purpose, to end the Queen's life. Eli rolled across the floor, pulling a hidden sidearm from under the table. His training as a commander kicked in. Every motion fluid and sharp. He fired 3 quick shots. One enemy fell. Another retreated behind cover. "Get down," he shouted, pushing Zalaria behind a steel desk. She crouched low, her hand glowing with a faint light. A personal shield shimmered around her, but it flickered with each hit it absorbed. "There are more coming," she warned. "They will not stop." Eli didn't answer. He was already calculating, watching the shadows, listening to footsteps. Then he moved, sliding across the floor, firing again. Another assassin dropped. His movements weren't perfect, but they were unpredictable. Human instinct, raw and fast. Zalaria watched him with something close to awe. Her people were elegant, trained in ancient combat arts, but this was chaos and courage. The way he moved, the way he adapted, was like watching a storm learn to fight. After minutes that felt like hours, the final attacker fell. Corridor was quiet again, filled only with the hiss of burning wall panels and Eli's heavy breathing. He turned to Zalaria, who stood slowly, brushing dust from her shoulder. "You're lucky I was here," he said with a faint smile. "No," she replied softly. "I chose your room for a reason." Eli raised an eyebrow, but before he could speak, the ship's security finally arrived too late to help, just in time to witness the aftermath. Medical officers rushed forward, offering aid, but Zalaria waved them off. "I am unharmed," she said. "Commander Thorne saved my life." The captain of the ship, a stern woman named Alina Voss, approached, eyes wide at the scene. "What happened here?" Eli looked at Zalaria, then back at the captain. He spoke. Slowly, carefully, "There's more going on than we thought. The Queen is in danger, and now I'm involved." Captain Voss nodded grimly. "Then we'll keep her safe." But Zalaria shook her head. "I must leave. I cannot hide here any longer. If they found me once, they will find me again. I need to return to my world. With Commander Thorne." Eli blinked. "Me." "You are not just a soldier," she said. "You are the only one I trust now." In that moment, Eli realized that the mission had changed. He wasn't just protecting a foreign leader. He was stepping into a storm that reached far beyond borders and titles. The truth was out there, hidden and dangerous. But so were the enemies willing to kill for it. He nodded slowly. "Then let's get you home." The stars stretched like silver lines outside the ship's viewport as Eli Thorne stood in silence, staring into the unknown. The stolen merchant vessel they now traveled in was old, slow, and loud, but it served its purpose. It didn't raise suspicion. The official diplomatic ship, Unity's Flame, had become too dangerous. If they had stayed there, Zalaria wouldn't have survived the night. Now, disguised as traders, they were headed deep into Trail space, into her home, into the fire. Queen Zalaria sat across from him, no longer in her elegant royal armor. Her silver-blue skin was hidden beneath layers of plain traveler robes, and the bright crest that once marked her station had been cut from her clothes. She didn't look like a queen anymore. She looked tired, smaller somehow, as if the weight of everything she carried had finally settled into her bones. But her eyes were the same, sharp, focused, afraid, but not broken. "You've been quiet," she said softly, breaking the silence between them. Eli looked at her, just thinking. "About what?" He paused. "About what I'm walking into. About what happens if I fail." Zalaria leaned forward, her voice gentle. "You are not alone." "But I'm human," he replied. "At your empire, that's not always a good thing." A faint smile touched her lips. "In my empire, nothing is safe anymore. Not even being queen." Their journey took them through sectors where no human ships were usually allowed. Zalaria knew the back routes, the forgotten pathways of the Dominion, where traders, smugglers, and rebels moved like shadows. It had been years since she had traveled this far without an escort. The stars here felt different, colder, Even space itself seemed to know something terrible was coming. They landed quietly on a distant moon called Virulon. Once a cultural center for the Trell, now it was half abandoned, left behind when power shifted to the newer capital. It was here, Zalaria said, that the real history was buried. The temple they entered was carved into the side of a mountain, worn by time and forgotten by most. Ancient symbols lined the walls, lit only by the flicker of dying lights. Eli's boots echoed as they walked, the silence deep and eerie. "This is where it begins," Zalaria whispered. "The records are here." They entered a hidden chamber one. Only the royal bloodline could unlock. The door opened with a soft hum as Zalaria pressed her palm to the reader, and a glow filled the room. Dozens of data columns rose from the ground, showing recordings, writings, and holograms long buried. Eli stepped forward, watching an ancient image shimmer into life. It showed humans taller, stronger, and different, but unmistakably human. They stood beside Trell elders, not as enemies, but as allies. Friends, protectors. He couldn't believe it. "These records say your kind were not newcomers to the stars," Laria said quietly. "They were once guides, guardians. Long before our empires rose." Eli's throat felt dry. "Why would your people hide this?" "Pride," she replied. "And fear. If the truth came out, the Trell would have to admit we were not always rulers, that we once followed." They stayed there for hours, reading, watching, learning. The deeper they looked, the clearer it became the lie at the heart of the Dominion had been carefully built, and it had worked, but something else began to grow between them too. As the hours passed, the walls between them softened. Eli saw more than a queen. He saw a woman who had carried the truth alone for far too long, and Zalaria, in turn, saw in Eli not just a soldier, but a soul who believed in justice, not politics. Later that night, as they sat outside the temple under the stars, she said, "We're too close now. The traitors will come for us again." "No," Eli said, "but they'll find two people ready to fight this time." She looked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she said softly, "Thank you, Eli." He didn't answer right away, just looked up at the stars and whispered, "Let's finish what we started." And far above, the stars kept watching, silent witnesses to a forgotten truth finally rising again. The next morning, the air on Virulon felt colder. Eli woke early, the memory of ancient holograms still fresh in his mind. He had seen things he wasn't meant to see, images of humans standing beside Trell leaders, not as subjects, but as equals, peacekeepers. Friends. It was impossible to forget. Zalaria stood near the edge of the cliff that overlooked the valley below. The ruins of the old capital stretched into the distance, swallowed slowly by time and nature. Her cloak fluttered in the wind, but her body was still, her gaze lost in thought. "They erased everything," she said, as Eli joined her. "Not just records, not just history. They erased meaning, connection." Eli looked at her carefully. "But you remembered." She gave a faint nod. "Only because my mother once showed me a symbol hidden in her pendant. She told me, in whispers, that there was a truth buried beneath the crown. I never understood what she meant until now." They returned to the temple chamber and spent hours decoding the records. With Zalaria's blood access, the system revealed more secret tales of a council that once ruled not just the Trell, but a group of ancient species working together, a circle of trust, a balance of powers. Humans had once led that circle. One file showed something else, something older than even the Alliance. A prophecy almost. It spoke of the Silent Flame. A being from a quiet world who would return when balance broke. Human. Eli's chest tightened as he read the words. "I don't believe in destiny," he muttered. "Neither do I," Zalaria replied. "But maybe this isn't about destiny. Maybe it's about responsibility." Suddenly, the temple lights flickered. The floor trembled beneath them. Eli turned sharply. "Earthquake." "No," Zalaria whispered. "We've been found." Moments later, the chamber door burst open. Armed guards stormed in Trell soldiers, but they did not wear the Queen's crest. They bore the black insignia of the Obsidian Circle, secret faction inside the Trell Empire that wanted Zelaria gone. At the front stood a familiar face, General Marvick, Zelaria's former advisor. "I hoped I wouldn't find you here," he said coldly. "But of course you're just like your mother, chasing old ghosts." Zelaria stepped forward unafraid. "You betrayed the crown. You lied to the people." "I protected the Empire," Marvick said, his voice like ice. "And I won't let. You destroy it over fairy tales and human myths." Eli stepped between them, weapon drawn. "She's not alone." Marvick laughed. "You, a single human?" Eli didn't move. That's all it takes sometimes. The tension crackled like fire between them. But before Marvick could give the order to fire, the temple itself responded. Light burst from the walls, ancient defenses. Coming to life, blue energy wrapped around Zelaria and Eli like a shield. Marvick hissed and fell back. "The throne has accepted them," one of his soldiers whispered in fear. Zelaria turned to Eli, eyes wide. "The temple recognizes us." "Does that mean? It means we are the rightful bearers of the truth? This place, it's more than ruins. It's a test." And we passed. The traitors fled, fearing the old power they couldn't control. Hours later, when the temple fell silent again, Eli and Zelaria stood before a throne made of stone and light. It rose from the ground itself, surrounded by ancient markings. This wasn't just a symbol of rule-it, was a legacy, a memory waiting to return. "We can't go back to the capital yet," Eli said. "Not like this." "No," Zelaria agreed. "But now we have proof. And soon we will have the people." Today had awakened something ancient, something powerful. It wasn't just a secret anymore, it was a beginning. The return to the capital was not a grand arrival. It was silent, secret, and dangerous. Eli and Zelaria entered through the underground tunnels beneath the city, a maze built centuries ago, now forgotten by most. Only the royal family and the oldest records remembered the way. Their ship had landed in the shadows. Their steps were quiet. Every heartbeat was loud. Zelaria's hood was pulled low. Leo walked beside her, blaster hidden under his cloak. Neither spoke much. They both knew what waited above. Betrayal. At sunset, they reached the old royal vault. It connected directly to the palace walls. Before they climbed, Zelaria turned to him. "If I fall today, the truth cannot," she said softly. "You're not falling," Eli answered, gripping her shoulder. "Not while I'm here." She gave him a weak smile, not a royal smile, a real one. Inside the palace, the lights were golden, the guards formal, the marble floors polished, but everything felt wrong. The hallways were too quiet. The air was thick with lies. And then came the moment they feared, in the central chamber. Where her throne stood, Zelaria's most trusted ally, Lord Sarek, was waiting. He had once been her teacher, her father's friend, her advisor since she was a child. He was also the traitor. "I had hoped you would stay gone," Sarek said, his voice heavy with false sorrow. "For your own safety, of course." "You knew," Zelaria said, her voice shaking. "You helped Marvick. You tried to kill me." "I helped the Dominion survive," he replied coldly. "We would destroy it, chasing old legends and dusty truths." Eli stepped forward. "Truth isn't the enemy, Sarek. It's the cure." Sarek ignored him. "You brought a human into the palace. You shame your blood. This human saved my life," Zelaria said fiercely, "and helped me find the truth you tried to bury." With a nod, Sarek gave the signal. Guards entered, but these were not Zelaria's royal guards. They wore no crest, only black armor. Obsidian circle, trained, silent, deadly. Eli moved fast. He fired at the nearest soldier, then ducked behind a pillar. The room erupted into chaos. Zelaria used her shield, pushing energy outward to protect the throne. "Get to the people!" she shouted. "Must show them what we found!" But they were outnumbered. Eli fought fiercely, but a blow to his shoulder knocked him down. The data crystal flew from his pocket, sliding across the floor. Sarek reached. At first, he held it high, smiling. This will never see the light. But before he could crush it, a shout echoed through the hall. It was Captain Varel. Once a loyal guard who had vanished months ago, now leading a group of rebel soldiers. You will not touch that crystal. Sarek's eyes widened. You were exiled, because I believed in her, Virel said, pointing to Zelaria. And now we all do. From the side doors, more people entered, former palace workers, lower caste citizens, even young officers, all holding weapons. All standing behind their queen. Eli rose slowly, shoulder bleeding, but his eyes burning. This is how it begins. He whispered. Zelaria walked toward Sarek, unshaken now. You taught me loyalty. And now you'll watch it return to the people. Sarek, cornered, tried to escape, but the guard seized him. The Obsidian soldiers, seeing their leader fall, dropped their weapons. Zelaria took the data crystal back. She walked to the center of the throne room, turned to her people, and held it high. This is our true history. And from today, we will build a new future on truth, not control. Cheers rose from the crowd. The palace, once full of secrets, echoed with hope. Later, as the wounded were treated and the chambers calmed, Eli sat beside Zelaria in the garden. You were right, she said softly. We didn't fall today. No, he replied with a smile. The skies above the Trail capital were calm for the first time in years. After the rebellion, the palace no longer felt like a prison of silence and secrets. The marble walls still stood, but now the halls echoed with the sounds of voices real. Voices, citizens, officers, elders, and workers, speaking freely without fear. Change had begun, and the people could feel it in the air. Queen Zelaria stood on the high balcony, overlooking the crowd gathered in the grand plaza below. Her new royal robe was simple, without jewels or gold, but her posture was strong. She didn't need ornaments anymore. She had truth, and truth had power. Beside her stood Eli Thorne, his arm in a sling, still recovering from the palace battle. But he stood tall, quietly watching the people cheer, cry, sing. He had never felt more like a soldier and yet more like something else. To a symbol today, history would be rewritten not by war, but by unity. Zelaria stepped forward too. Speak, her voice amplified by the ancient crystal throne's power. Carried across the plaza. My people, she began. For generations we were taught that strength comes from control, that leadership is born from fear, and that truth is a threat. She paused, letting the silence speak for her. But I stand here today because one human and outsider chose to fight not for power, but for honesty, for justice, for me. The crowd looked up at Eli. Some bowed, others clapped. Many simply stared with wonder. A human had changed their fate. It felt impossible until it wasn't. Zelaria continued, The crystal you see before you holds our true past. It shows a time when Trell and humans stood side by side, not as rulers and rivals, but as allies, peacekeepers, friends. She held up the crystal. The hologram lit up, projecting ancient images into the sky, humans and Trell together, building, protecting, leading. Gasps filled the crowd. No one could deny it now. The lie was gone. This truth, Zelaria said, does not weaken us, it frees us. Starting today, we welcome Earth and its people not as visitors, but as brothers. Tears welled in Eli's eyes. He hadn't expected this. He had fought to protect one woman and uncover one secret, but what came from it was something far greater later. After the ceremony, Eli and Zelaria walked alone in the royal gardens. You've done it, Eli said quietly. They love you now. They love the truth, she replied. I only gave it back to them. You could have died, he said, looking at her gently. So could you, she replied, her eyes meeting his. But we didn't. They sat on a stone bench under the starlight. For a while, they didn't speak. They didn't need to. Everything had changed, but in this quiet moment, it felt peaceful. I'll have to return to Earth soon, Eli said at last. The council will want to know everything. I'll have to rebuild a new council of my own, Zelaria added. One with voices from every caste, Not just the elite. He smiled. Sounds like a lot of work, she smiled back. It's worth it. Then she stood, and as she turned to leave, she stopped and looked at him with that same mysterious smile she had worn the first night they met. By the way, she said, when I walked into your room that night, I wasn't lost. Eli raised an eyebrow. No, I knew exactly what I was doing. She walked away, her steps light and full of purpose, leaving Eli to stare after her with a soft laugh and a heart fuller than he expected. And as the stars above Trell burned brighter, so did a new alliance between worlds founded not by armies, but by two souls brave enough to believe in something bigger than themselves. The galaxy would never be the same again.